In this world, an ancestral fruit grants various special abilities to the people that eat them. Our protagonist, named Light, wants to become an adventurer and dreams of eating one of these fruits. His friend Lena wonders what kind of skill he wants, and Light reveals that there are several. The one that grants perfect aim would be great, but he would also like the one that lets him dual-wield powerful weapons. Any combat skill would be good enough for Light, and Lena points out that he has dreamt of becoming an adventurer since he was little. Lena wants a skill as well, but she only wants one that will allow her to have the same job as Light. They agree to become adventurers together, but no one can know what their skill will be until they eat the fruit. The pair finally arrives at the church where they will eat the fruit and Light prepares to begin his new life. However, a while later, we find Light happily picking some berries. This happiness is completely fake, however, as Light angrily thinks about how far he is from his dream of becoming an adventurer. Light is forced to live life as a fruit farmer because of the terrible skill he received after eating the fruit. We go back 3 months to when Light arrived at the church. Several fruit eaters were allowed to pick the fruit they wanted to eat, but there was one rule that they had to obey. This rule says that they may only eat one skill fruit throughout their whole life. This is because eating a second skill fruit would poison them and result in certain death. This is pretty shocking, but it's a rule that many have had to learn the hard way. Tons of people have disliked the skill they received and wanted to try again. Unfortunately, not a single person who has eaten 2 skill fruits has ever survived. Light is well aware of this fact, and points out that it's absolutely necessary for an adventurer to have a combat skill. Every famous adventurer possesses an incredibly powerful skill, and Light wants to be just like them. Lena goes first, and her body turns hot after eating the fruit. Everyone is stunned for some reason, and she receives a sword saint skill. The nun in charge never thought that she would ever see a sword saint in person, and she declares Lena as a chosen one. Light is next, and he eagerly bites into the fruit. He declares that it's time to leave his mark in history, but the nun is unimpressed. Light eagerly waits to hear what his powerful skill is, but the nun reveals that he received a fruit master skill. It allows him to harvest a lot of berries and stuff at the same time, and it shortens cultivation times. The nun really piles on the disappointment, as she explains that the fruit master skill is the furthest from being suited for combat. Light's dreams of becoming an adventurer are destroyed, and his life is now ruined. Lena tries to make him feel better by saying that she will harvest fruits with him, and they can even build a massive plantation. This infuriates the nosy nun as she points out that sword saints like Lena are only seen once a decade. For the sake of the nation, Lena must become an adventurer and moved to the city immediately. The two friends say goodbye as Lena is dragged away and Light is left with no hope. Back to the present, we learn that Light has been growing fruit non-stop since that day, and has been selling the fruit for money. Light hates farming for the most part, and fruit doesn't sell for much either. His skill would be more valuable if it could help him grow anything other than fruit, but it can't. As for Lena, she has been promoted to S rank in record time. Some little orphans nearby dream of becoming great adventurers like Lena, and this only makes her boy feel worse. Light is in some wimp though, and vows to one day become an adventurer that is even better than Lena. Even without a combat-type skill, Light promises to find a way. He chops away a tree stump and convinces himself that if he can slice through it, it will mean that he will be an adventurer. Unfortunately, he just embarrasses himself and all his confidence goes away. He just gives up and is certain that Lena has already forgotten him. Just then some kid named Isla brings him some water. The village chief found this girl one day and forced Light to look after her. Light decided not to ask about her past, and they've been living together. At dinner, Light reveals that he's been working on growing skill fruits. They are worth more money, and he really wants to save up to buy a sword. Light shows Isla the skill fruits he's grown, and warns her to never eat one without his permission. The dumb kid had no clue what they were and reveals that she used those fruits in the stew that they're eating. Of course, Light is horrified to hear this and remembers that eating more than one skill fruit will result in death. Just then, Light begins to feel intense pain, and he wonders if he's going to die. He uses his last words to apologize to Isla because it's his fault for not telling her about the skill fruits. His dramatic speech is cut short when Light realizes that he isn't dying. Just then, our boy is shocked when he receives a second skill, one called the Sword God. Back at the church, the nun senses something that she never thought possible. Back with our boy, Isla also receives a skill after eating the fruit. As luck would have it, Isla's skill allows her to see the skill someone else has, and what their skill can do. Her power reveals that the Fruit Master skill makes Light immune to the poison of all fruits. As for Light's Sword God skill, it increases his attack power dramatically when wielding a sword. Of course, Light rushes outside to test his new skill. He finds that he's now able to easily slice through the tree stump. That isn't all, as his attack nearly sliced down all the trees in the forest. Light couldn't be happier, as this means that he's now the only person in the entire world with 2 skills. The next day, Light into the city so he can go to the Adventurers Guild. He explains to Isla that completing bounties results in a reward that will allow them to buy equipment and food. Light didn't just come here for money, however, he also needs to find out how much his skill will help him in actual battle. If it's as powerful as it feels, he might even be able to surpass Lena. Light leaves Isla alone while he goes to the receptionist's desk, and she takes the time to look at everyone's powers. Isla is shocked because everyone only has 1 skill, and even among all these powerful adventurers, only Light has 2. Isla wants to be useful to Light, so she diligently studies the adventurers. Just then, some annoying guy says that Light bumped into him and he mocks Light for being the Fruit Master. The guy gets upset when Light just ignores him, but his attack is easily blocked by our boy. Everyone is stunned to see this, and Light realizes that just holding a sword also improves his reaction speed. The guy named Gene tells Light that he was just lucky and he leaves to go do things jerks do. Light has more important things to do anyway, and reveals that he already found a job. Moments later, our heroes arrive where the monsters will be, and he tells Isla to be careful. Isla spots their first monster and uses her appraisal skill to reveal that it has some pretty high defense stats. Our boy Light is ready for his first battle, and uses his Sword God skill to slice the slime in 2. Light amazes himself with how light his sword feels now, but it's clear that he will need to learn how to manage his power. Light plans to cut the slime into pieces so they can sail at the guild, but Isla feels bad for the slime. Light explains that they can buy 10 pizzas with the money, and Isla completely changes her tune. Her love for pizza has her ready to tear the slime to pieces. As they carve it up, Light hears some people screaming in terror. Turns out to be Jean, who's being confronted by a giant ogre. The ogre is incredibly powerful, and the group realizes that they have no chance of surviving. Light calls out to ask if they're okay, but Jean comes up with an evil plan. He starts rushing towards Light to get the ogre to switch targets, and either reveals that ogres aren't usually found in this place. Jean's plan is successful as he escapes, and the ogre sets its eyes on Light. Light has no choice but to fight, but he isn't scared. Defeating this monster would be a great way to start his adventuring career. Light dodges the beast's first attack, and Isla warns him to be careful. She points out that his Sword God skill doesn't do anything for his defense, so he has to avoid getting hit at all costs. Light plans to become the greatest adventurer in history, so he prepares his weapon. He has gotten used to his skill now and is confident that he can use his full power for this next attack. Light slices through the ogre's weapon and thinks about how he must catch up to Lena no matter what. He then uses his demon slash attack to absolutely destroy the beast. Isla celebrates his victory, and we see that the other guys were watching the fight. They can't believe what they just saw and wonder who Light even is. At the guild, the receptionist is shocked to hear that Light not only defeated a slime, but an ogre as well. As if the giant horn wasn't proof enough, Jean's thugs confirm what they saw. Just then, everyone in the guild goes quiet as the famous S-rank party arrives. They are called Sacred, and their star is the S-rank Lena. Light says hello to her, but Lena strangely tells him that he has her mistaken for someone else. Back at the church, the nun reveals what she saw that worried her so much. Turns out that she saw the future, and it revealed something terrible. She explains that a tremendous threat that will shake the world has just been born. The arrival of Sacred is a big deal, and all eyes are on the S-class team of adventurers as they arrive. Among them is a suave guy named Grouse, the hulking strong-arm Eric, and the raging flames Serum. The biggest star by far, however, is the Sword Saint Lena, who's a particular hit with the guys. A couple of her fanboys call out, but after she hits them with a deadly side-eye, the cat-calling ends abruptly. Grouse teases his teammate by telling her not to frighten the small fry too much. There is one among the crowd that isn't afraid, however, and that is Light. Light pushes his way through the crowd and tries to get Lena's attention. He's excited to see his old friend, but when he runs up to her, Lena gives him one look and is not impressed. Like a tier 3 sub who's donated way too much money to his favorite streamer, Light has been completely forgotten. Lena tells our hero that he has the wrong girl and leaves without another word. Naturally, Light is shocked that he's been rejected, but Isla knows exactly what will cheer him up while they wait for their payment for the ogre job, and that's some good old pizza. Light is still sulking after his encounter, but Isla's threat of eating everything before he has a chance to get a taste quickly snaps him out of it. He starts cramming slices into his pizza hole and nearly chokes to death for his trouble. A stranger hands him something to drink and saves his life. It turns out that it's Lena. She's arrived in disguise, and before Light can blow her cover, she hushes him. She doesn't want Grouse to find out that she's here. The three sit down together and the girls introduce themselves. More importantly though, Light wants to know what the heck is going on. She tells him to keep it down and counters with a question of her own. Why was he at the guild? Light smirks and proudly declares that he and his little pizza vacuum that he calls an assistant are actually adventurers. It's a long story, and Light is happy to tell it. In the end, Lena is overjoyed to discover that her friend has finally achieved his dream. Light says that with his incredible sword god skill, he'll catch up to her level in no time. Lena's happy to see that Light hasn't changed one bit since they last saw each other. Light asks about Sacred, eager to find out what life is like with the greatest party, but Lena's mood changes at the mention of her team. As it happens, it's not all rainbows and sunshine at the top. Lena explains that she's only working with them because that is what the Holy Sister has commanded. She really doesn't have a choice in the matter. The money is great, but the vibes are just off. Lena warns him to stay away from Sacred. They're not the people he thinks they are. That explains why she pretended not to know him earlier, but Light wants to know why she doesn't like Sacred. Lena flashes back to 2 months prior, while she and her team were on a job. Their opponent was a giant viper, terrorizing the locals. Luckily, monsters like that are weak to fire, so Grouse ordered their resident pyromaniac to do his thing and bring the heat. The fight went off without a hitch, and the serpent was easily defeated by the adventurers. But as the wind shifted, a new problem arose. The fire began to spread to nearby farms. Lena tried to warn the others, but Grouse couldn't care less. When all is said and done, the farm is completely destroyed, and the farmers are ruined. Grouse coldly explains that crops can be regrown but lives cannot. If they hadn't done what they did, then that monster would have hurt who knows how many people. This doesn't sit right with Lena, who goes to complain to the Holy Sister, but as expected, she doesn't care either. She tells Lena that all history will remember is how the Great Party Sacred defeated an evil monster. As far as the sister is concerned, Lena did a good job, and that's all that matters. Ever since then, the Sword Saint has been troubled by her teammates' callous attitude towards the people they are meant to be serving. Light sees how this has affected his friend and tells her that if she doesn't like her party, she can just join his. Things are never that easy, however, and Lena has to turn down his offer. Light asks if she really wants to stay with Sacred, then why is she crying? Embarrassed, Lena suddenly gets up and leaves in a hurry, leaving Light more worried about his friend than ever. Later that day, he and Isla receive their hefty reward from the guild. It's a whopping 10,000 gold that leaves Isla drooling at the sight of it, but not even all that money can cheer up Light. He's still concerned about Lena, so Isla tells him that if he's really that worried, he should just ask them himself. As it so happens, Grouse is right over there, living it up in the VIP lounge with a couple of cuties in some bottle service. He's in the middle of recanting a tale of his heroic bravery when the guild receptionist approaches with a complaint from the locals. Apparently he and his team accidentally caused some more collateral on their last mission, something about destroying a reservoir. Grouse doesn't have time to listen to every little detail and reminds the receptionist that sometimes sacrifices have to be made for the greater good. He says that he can't be expected to keep an eye out for every insect under his foot while he's walking. At this point, Light has heard enough and barges in, demanding that Lena be set free from Sacred. Grouse mistakes him for another one of her overzealous fans, and with the snap of his fingers, has security throw the rowdy Light out of the lounge. Some other adventurers warn Light that if he messes with Sacred, then he's bound to get in trouble with the Holy Sister, which would mean no work and no pay. Isla is worried about Light, but he tells her that it's all right. He knows what he has to do now. There's just one problem: they might not be able to eat pizza anymore. Back with Sacred, the team is fawning over their latest gift from the Holy Sister, a sweet new axe. Lena, however, is in her own world, thinking about what Light said to her. Making up her mind, she declares that she's leaving Sacred. The others are surprised. Why would anyone want to leave the greatest team of adventurers in the world? But Lena is certain she wants to be a hero she can be proud of, not whatever they are. She makes for the door, but before she can leave, Grouse suddenly stands in her way. He draws his blades and places them against her throat. He says that the audacity to think she could defy him and leave the party is staggering. Lena reaches for her own weapon, but Grouse reminds her that no matter how good she is with that sword, there's nothing she can do to stop him in his power. Realizing that she's beat, Lena stands down. As it turns out, Grouse's power is pretty strong, and it's the power of a strong pimp hand. He gives Lena a hard slap and drops her to the floor, displaying just how much of a psycho he is when he tells her that she and him are going to be heroes together forever. Later on, the people are cheering in the streets, as Sacred depart for their latest job to save the day. Lena meekly follows along, trying to convince herself that the only way she can help people is to stick around. Just then, the team stops when they notice a lone figure standing in their path. Light has returned, and this time he's not leaving until his friend leaves with him. He tells her that he and Isla are off to go fight some monsters. Considering they're complete noobs at this whole adventure business, she should join them and come help. After all, they did promise each other that they become adventurers together. Grouse interrupts, telling Light to get out of the way because they have work to do. In return, Light draws his sword and throws down the challenge. He and Grouse will duel for Lena's freedom. All it takes is calling Grouse a chicken for him to take the bait, and the fight is on right then and there. Before the match begins, Grouse lets Light know that if he loses, he'll be banished from the Adventurers Guild and the Holy City forever. Lena is horrified because she doesn't believe that Light can win, and Grouse agrees. He gives our hero one last chance to give up now. Isla uses her eye Pokédex to reveal Grouse's superhuman speed. To keep things fair, Light thinks about revealing both of his powers as well, but barely gets the word out before Grouse is on him in a flash. The two lock swords as a crowd gathers to watch the duel. Even knowing about it, Light is still surprised by the speed of his opponent. Grouse unleashes a flurry of super-fast strikes that Light just barely manages to fend off. With a dash, Grouse appears behind him, catching Light off guard again and again. As expected of an S-rank, Grouse is no joke. Not even the ogre was this tough. With Lena on the line, Light shows no fear as he charges into attack, but his blow is easily countered, and in the end his sword is broken by Grouse's superior skill. The guy nicknamed Godspeed laughs at the foolish boy, and tells Lena that if she swears complete obedience to him, then he might consider mercy. Light gets back on his feet and tells Lena not to worry, he'll win this. Light's confidence feels like more than just empty words, and Lena walks over to him. Joined by Isla as well, she tells Light that she believes in him and she knows he'll win. Ready for round 2, Light raises his broken blade and tells Grouse to hurry up and bring it. He's got adventuring to do and doesn't have time to waste on the likes of him. Grouse is furious and decides that he'll just have to destroy them all. Light is ready, but the only problem is that he needs a new weapon. Looking around, he spots a man on the sidelines with their broom in his hand. He runs over and asks if he can borrow it for a minute. Seeing his enemy wield a simple broom against him only makes Grouse all the more angry. He can't believe this joke, but Light isn't laughing. With his skill, even a simple broom can become a weapon without equal. All he needs to do is imagine it. Grouse can't take this mockery anymore and launches into another attack, racing forward with lightning speed. Light realizes the reason he can't keep up is because all he's been doing up until now is watching and reacting. Now it's time to be proactive and predict where Grouse will be instead of trying to match his speed. Closing his eyes and focusing his mind, Light waits for the right moment to strike. Just when it looks like Grouse is about to finish the fight, Light chooses his moment and swings. His sword, or rather his broom, finds its mark, cracking across Grouse's face with a satisfying impact and sends him flying. Just like that, Light has swept up the competition and ended the duel with a win. Needless to say, everyone is shocked to see the outcome, including the other members of Sacred. Light warns them that if they decide to mess with him or his teammates, they'll get the same treatment as Grouse. With that done, our hero turns to Lena. He asks her one more time if she would like to join him on his adventures, and she is more than happy to say yes. She's been wanting to say that for a long time now. Back at Lena's house, Isla and Lai are cheerfully tending to the garden. It's been a week now since the duel, and things are going pretty good for the party. Lena wonders if Light's injuries have healed, and he tells her that he feels fit enough to come with her to the guild for a job or two. Just then, a ring at the front gate announces a messenger from the Holy Sister. The young man informs Lena that the sister has summoned her to talk about what happened with Sacred, but Lena tells him that her answer hasn't changed. She won't return to her old team no matter what. The boy tells her that things will change now, and she won't be receiving the same benefits she once did. This becomes clear when the three go looking for work at the guild, and find their selection of job offerings to be limited. The only tasks they're allowed to take are things like clearing out the sewers of rats, rebuilding broken homes, and saving lost cats. It's a far cry from fighting terrifying monsters, and Light realizes that such meager jobs won't be able to pay the bills, let alone afford pizza, news that nearly sends poor Isla into a coma. Despite all that, Lena gladly accepts the jobs, all too ready to finally start helping people who really need it. The people are surprised and delighted to have a famous hero like the Sword Saint herself show up to help, and our heroes waste no time in getting to work repairing the homes. With the powers of the Sword Saint and the Sword God combined, the two make quick work of every task they're given. By the end of a long day, the three count their earnings and discover that they've barely made any money. Isla asks how much it is in terms of pizza, and the answer isn't good. For Lena, however, the money doesn't matter. Being able to help those in need is all that she's ever wanted. She's satisfied, but she worries that this isn't the kind of adventurer that Light wanted to be. Light reassures her that this has been great for him too, and he wouldn't have it any other way. To celebrate, he suggests the three of them make a vow, kind of like wishing upon a star for luck. He comes up with a name for their party, Luxuria, which means an imperfect light. With their new party formed, the three vow to adventure together forever. Meanwhile, the Holy Sister is plotting something sinister for their trio. She has a new S-rank job only they can accomplish, and while someone as talented as Lena might survive, the other two might not be so fortunate. This was the end of episode 2. Subscribe to not miss the next part.